Good morning and welcome to this week's programme, an edition in which we profile the Cork soprano Cara O'Sullivan, who died this past week at the age of 59. In this morning's programme, her musical family.
And she said, I remember, she said, when your granny sang, everybody stopped. She stopped everybody in their tracks.
Her precocious talent as a 12-year-old.
She noticed that I had this big woman's voice at a very young age.
Her indebtedness to her parents.
We were privileged in that our parents were great homemakers and were fantastic parents. I think that would be a fair thing to say.
And to her teachers.
And at the time, he just said she could go anywhere in the world. She can be anything that she wants to be.
She had been suffering from early dementia and had retired within the past 2 years, but her death came as a shock to RTE broadcasters who had worked with her. Sean Rocks, Marty Whelan, Ryan Tubridy.
I was always struck by, the word I would use is earthy. She was a very earthy person, no airs or graces, just pure fun.
Apart from her clear talent and her wonderful voice and a larger-than-life attitude, but she was just a gorgeous person.
Cara has been described as a fearsome coloratura. Her vocal and musical talents were easily matched by a powerful and charismatic stage presence, and her on-stage magic was matched by a wonderfully warm personality, great sense of humour, and a very down-to-earth character. From her first major role in 1996 as Donna Anna in Mozart's Don Giovanni in the West National Opera, right through to performances at Sydney Opera House and the Royal Albert Hall in London, Cara O'Sullivan will be sadly missed by the music world, but most of all, I'm sure, by her friends and family. One of Cara's favourite arias was, as an encore, came from Puccini's Gianni Schicchi. It's an aria that needs absolutely no introduction.
Cara O'Sullivan was a popular singer with audiences. It was more than their appreciation of her astounding voice. It was also her warmth, her mischief and her sense of fun. She did a number of interviews with Miriam O'Callaghan, who will incidentally be paying her own tribute to her on her programme at 10 o'clock this morning. But just a decade ago, in the course of a discursive interview, Miriam asked this question.
Do you still love singing?
An interesting question. I really love the business of rehearsing and learning new music, and I love singing, I love performing. The times when it can get a bit hard, there's no point in saying otherwise. It's a tough business.
Do you mean by that every time you perform, you feel you have to perform as well as the time before and keep going? Is that it? That every time there's no margin at all for failure?
Well, there is exactly that. And I remember hearing Padraig Harrington describe how he is as successful as he is. And he said it's to do with his fear. Not fear of failure, just the fear of not getting it right. And I understood totally what he meant. It's just, you're living on the edge all the time.
And yet it's probably what makes you perform brilliantly.
That's why I am what I am. I am a live concert artist, and that's how I do it. I don't know any other way.
Earlier in that same interview, which was in the Miriam Meets series, Cara O'Sullivan talked, along with her sister Nuala O'Sullivan, about growing up in Cork City.
Was it a privileged upbringing?
We hadn't a lot of money. Nobody had at that time, but we were privileged in that our parents were great homemakers and were fantastic parents. I think that would be a fair thing to say.
Were they musical, Nuala?
Very musical. My mum and dad were always singing. In fact, around the house, mum doing her housework. If she was peeling potatoes, she was singing. If she was sad, she was singing. If she was happy, she was singing. There was a party every Sunday night in our house, and some other nights as well, and you wouldn't mind, they never drank. So it wasn't that type of party, but it was a house where everybody gathered.
Yeah.
So I'd have to pull out the guitar and sing songs like my father liked a few rebel songs, like a Salonica now, and a few songs like that. No, I'm a 3-chord trick person, but I was able to manage to back anything that they sang. We were all in choirs at the same time.
In kind of the church choirs?
And School of Music choir as well.
Yeah, but it was very organic. There was no kind of get out and sing, or well, there was a bit of get to mass and say your prayers and sing.
Except for me,
except for you, because Nuala used to stay at home and make the dinner.
How come you managed to get that role?
Because I didn't like going to mass, and my mother thought the most religious thing for her was that she'd come home the only day of the week the dinner would be made, and I'd make Sunday dinner and have the house spotless when they'd come in.
So I disagree there. No, well, I do it for dinner, but the pans would be halfway out the door. But she made a lovely dinner.
Her family was indeed musical and had been for some generations.
It's been pretty well documented that my mother's mother was a beautiful singer and really could have taken, she had a very, very fine contralto voice and basically could have gone anywhere and done anything with it, but was just born at the wrong time. And there was an opportunity for her to go to the Irish College in Rome and study singing there, but parents wouldn't allow it. Quite recently in the last couple of years, I met this very elderly lady who was a friend of a neighbour of our late father's, and she said to me, "You must be Donny Sullivan's daughter." And I said, "I am." And she said, "I remember when your granny was alive. She died when my father was 12. They lived off Barrack Street and Finbar Street, a tiny little street, quite close to Southgate Bridge, very close to the city." And she said, "I remember," she said, "when your granny sang, everybody stopped. She stopped everybody in their tracks. Fellas going about with donkeys and carts and bikes and trikes and people going about their business. She stopped people in their tracks." That was the first indicator that we had. We knew Daddy could sing. He was a fine singer, fine baritone. We never knew that about my grandmother.
Although the family could all sing, and did, and were generally musical, it was also noted that Cara had an unusual voice.
I understand at 12 I could sing like a woman, but I wasn't aware of that. Aoife, I think, noticed it all right. She would have been 6 years older than me. She noticed that I had this big woman's voice at a very young age. I was very tall at 12. I was skinny malinky, but I was very, very tall. And I remember she said to me, "You actually were singing like a grown woman at 12. And I said, "I don't remember it." And I think the biggest disappointment of my life was that nobody else could sing like me. I thought everybody could sing like that. It was, it was never a kind of a question, "Oh my God, Cara the singer or Nuala the singer." And to be fair, our mum used to always say, you must be something. You're very proud of your daughter, Anne, and I'm proud of all my children. She used to always say that, and I thought that was, that was very much a part of her parenting skills. I think it was marvellous. She was way ahead of her time in that sense.
When she was still at school, her parents wondered what they should be doing to help her in a possible singing career.
I remember Mum and Dad brought me in to see Jack Murphy. He was the director of the Cork School of Music at the time, and my parents went in simply, what should we be doing? Is there something we could be doing that would be of help to her? I was maybe 17, 18 at the time, and I had started training in the School of Music, and at the time he just said she could go anywhere in the world. She can be anything that she wants to be. She has the ability to go to the very, very top. If she wants to go to La Scala Milan, which I never got there, by the way, but if
Not yet.
Oh God, she has the ability to go wherever she really wants to go in life as a singer. It's there. And my parents, I think they were kind of a bit phased by that, in truth. It was, they weren't too sure, still weren't too sure what to do. No more than anybody else was, really.
Between 1984 and 1989, she took formal vocal lessons from Robert Baer in the Cork School of Music.
Well, I started at 17 in the School of Music, and my teacher was Robert Baer, and Bobby was just the most amazing guy. And I was very lucky, very privileged to have someone like him taking care of me. And I sang virtually nothing for the first year, except just vocal exercises. And I was saying, Bobby, when am I going to sing a song? When I'm telling you can, no, girl, it's been abandoned. We don't take any rubbish now from you. He says, when I'm telling you you're ready, you'll be ready, and keep singing your scales. Now go on. That year of just singing nothing but scales stood to me, and I think belief still stands to me to this day.
Do you like singing scales still?
I do. See, scales are fun, and you can make scales fun.
Could you sing a scale now?
No? Are you sure, Miriam?
Yeah, any scale.
At this hour of the morning? Beat that now, Miriam.
I am very impressed, Cara. I think she's a future. Do you, Nuala?
I
in this
think you
opera
could be right.
business.
In 1990, she entered the RTE Musician of the Future competition. The standard was exceptionally high. Vincent Finn, then Director General, commended the finalists and the judges, but added this:
I don't in the least envy the adjudicators their very difficult job.
And Jane Carty announced the winner.
And this is the first time this instrument has won the competition. It is the voice Cara O'Sullivan.
That applause lasted 1 minute and 20 seconds. This was, she agreed, a turning point in her career.
And it was just, for me, it was so exciting to get to perform for the first time live on television. I was absolutely, I mean, I remember Mike Murphy, I think, was the presenter, and he nearly had to kick me out the door to sing. And once I got out there, I just got on with it and won it. But it was an amazing experience. And these people along the way have been so quietly so good to me.
And among those she thanked were Welsh National Opera. They accepted her at the age of 34, although she was then undergoing cancer treatment.
They were amazingly supportive because basically they had this young woman on their hands that was in receiving cancer treatment while rehearsing at the same time, and they went with it. I mean, they could have fired me. They would have been within their rights to say, sorry, we don't want you, we'll get somebody else in. A lot easier, a lot less pressure. I could have got sick, I could have got tired, I could have ended up in hospital. It's so hard to know. They were incredibly supportive at that time. And what they did was, I remember on the first night before I went out to sing, and it was like, you can imagine, an emotional night, and I wanted to make sure everything would be absolutely perfect. Carlo Rizzi came into my dressing room, the conductor, and a big cheese conductor came into my dressing room and said, we think you're doing a great job, you have done incredibly well, you're going to be wonderful tonight and for the run, and what we want to do is we want to offer you the role of Violetta La Traviata. Oh. And it was just the lift it gave me. It was immense. It was like as if somebody just picked me up and carried me somewhere. It was just the most amazing feeling.
That was lovely.
And then at the end of that first night, the whole of the management team, it's about 8 of them, stood at the side of the stage, just off the stage, and were waiting for me. And they were all absolutely in floods and in flitters. And I was saying, get out of me way. I was bursting for a piddle or something, I don't know. But at the time, it was wonderful to see all these grown men and women absolutely bawling, crying. I think they were just so happy for me, but so relieved. And of course, I was being, practical as ever. Like, that's grand, thanks very much. But I did. I must confess. Yes, definitely. But I must confess. Privately, I did go home and have a good long cry.
Did you?
Oh yeah.
Well,
that
just
night.
the relief and
yeah. finally made it, you know. I didn't think I'd make it.
In many interviews in the RTE Sound Archive, there are references to a singer's life on tour as a challenge. This from an interview with Tom Durley.
I mean, I'm not being funny. It's just terribly difficult for a woman to sit in a dining room. I made myself do it a few times while I was on tour. I was in faraway places like Norwich and Edinburgh and Plymouth, and I just made myself go down to the dining room and have my dinner. And you could see that, I mean, it was just so peculiar.
Yes,
being watched
not
almost.
a pleasant experience
I'm sure
at
it was
all.
probably all in my head. Feel you're rushing yourself to get the hell out of it again, you know.
And in the course of her discussion with her sister Nuala, she recounts episodes when life on tour as a professional singer was challenging.
It's very difficult, you know. You could be staying in some really beautiful places and it can be pretty miserable. But then most of the time it doesn't bother me, but sometimes you really feel the need. I feel the need to be home, and it can be occasionally overwhelming. I think you mentioned an incident.
Yeah, a few years ago. I was at home, kids everywhere, and mother was there, housework, the usual, day-to-day life. And Cara rang me and said, I'm in this hotel room. I'm bored off my head. I feel, she was giving out and giving out. I said, you lucky thing. Why can't you just run a bath? This would have been my ideal evening now. Run a bath, get a glass of wine or even a bottle, a book, and you have all that time to yourself. I said, are you for real? So, all right, I didn't think of that. To me, that would have been an ideal scenario. A wonderful
Dream of it,
evening.
yeah.
And here she was giving out about it. So then you thought, I knew you were lonely. But
I was stuck in this place for a week because I was on tour and I didn't speak to very many people outside of the work environment. So, because I wasn't a great social animal. I wasn't into kind of going to pubs very into the night because you can't do that and sing.
One time you were in Hull, wasn't there, when you got quite sad?
I've never experienced anything like it. I panicked and this place was kind of closing in on me. I've never had the experience then or since. The place itself was very small. The backstage area was tiny and the rooms were like matchboxes. And there was 3 of us with the dressers, the wig people and all the other sundry stuff that goes on in an opera. And this room couldn't be any smaller. And I actually I was starting to hyperventilate, which I think I've never done then or since. And I remember going into a phone booth and ringing Nuala at the half time of this opera. And I said to Nuala, get me out of here. And she said, how am I going to get you out of there? I said, I don't care. Get me out of here. Where are you going to fly from? I don't know. Can you get to Heathrow? I can. Right, I'll call your travel agent. That time you couldn't do anything on the internet. I'll call the travel agent, get you to where you need to be. Just get to Heathrow. I'll tell you what time in a couple of hours. Ring me in 3 hours, which would have been maybe about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. I did. I drove from Hull to London overnight. I told the company.
You just couldn't.
I told them, I just said, I have to go. I actually panicked and I said, I want to go home. But that time it was mighty awkward. And you basically spent several hours up during that night trying to organise this. And I got home, you picked me up from the airport and I just sat and I went, okay, I'm better now.
Cara O'Sullivan was a regular contributor to RTE Radio. She participated in this discussion with Ryan Tubridy on the crossover phenomenon, driven mainly by the record companies in which opera favourites were taken out of context and made into hits by popular singers. In general, she was not a purist on the question.
How do you, as somebody who sings as beautifully as you do, how do you feel about the various music that you would sing on a day-to-day basis, given the pop treatment by people like Russell Watson or Charlotte Church or this woman Giordano that we played earlier on? What's your take on it?
It's like everything in life. You get it. It's good, it's bad, and it's indifferent. That's my honest to God view. When I heard it for the first time, I was sitting in my car and I was very taken aback. But it started growing on me, and I don't know why. I sing Casta Diva like very often, and I can't get it out of my head, because you played 2 sections there. You played one with Philippa, is it that her name? And then the other you played was Maria Callas. Now, for me, Maria Callas is absolutely iconic as an opera singer. No one can touch her. No one ever will. But, we can't all be Pavarotti. We can't all be world-class singers. I think that her take on it, while it's not something that I would rush out to buy, I think it has a certain worthiness. I don't think it's going to go away. Karen seems to think, put it away, get rid of it, bring back what was there before. I don't think you can do that. But Maria Callas will always be there, whether Philippa Giordani will always be there. is it, hard to know, really.
Do you buy into the idea that these opera stars, the Russell Watsons and Charlotte Churches and so forth, are useful as calling cards for the real deal?
Well, let's be honest. They're making, a fairly handy living out of it, and good luck to them. That's my philosophy. I do what I do. I would find it intensely boring to be marketed to the point of no return, that you lose all character and soul as a performer. But having said that, I mightn't be as well off as they are. And, Russell Watson doesn't do anything for me. I have to be honest. It just leaves me cold.
Why?
It's soulless. It's characterless. It has nothing. Of all of them, I think Il Divo are fantastic. Celtic tenors are fantastic. They do a great job. They entertain.
Well done.
The phenomenon she dated to Italia 90 and Pavarotti being chosen for the soundtrack of the World Cup opening music.
The one thing that I think made a huge shift in the emphasis of how opera is performed and how it's received by the public was the concert in Italia 90. It wasn't just the one voice. Pavarotti is amazing. It was the combination of the three. It just fired people's imaginations. We couldn't get it on video and on CD fast enough. And that was the beginning of what was a huge new regeneration in the business of singing opera, be it the best loved tunes from opera, not the complete operas. But hey, it opened up doors to all of us.
And she was a follower of Munster rugby and sang on occasions in their honour, a point emphasised by Ryan Tubridy in this programme.
Cara, I think Munster are playing tonight, aren't they?
Yeah.
And anyway, so they're playing tonight, and you're associated with them, given, who you are, and it's so funny talking to you and then hearing you sing. You're like two different people entirely.
So we're all God's creatures, Ryan.
I'm complimenting you, Cara.
Thank you.
That you can be so versatile.
I am.
I know that. But you sing a lot. We mentioned earlier on about this whole idea of the association with opera with sport. And what sort of music are you requested to sing, say, for Munster Rugby before matches, that kind of thing?
Do you really want to know?
Yeah, big time.
Well, I sing a man's song, actually. It's called Stand Up and Fight. It's the Toreador song. It's a baritone song.
Fantastic.
But I absolutely had the most amazing time singing it in Thomond Park last January, and I sang it in Lansdowne Road at their quarter-final match, and I sang it at the final in the Millennium Stadium.
Now, who decided on you singing that song? Did you bring it to their table?
No. That's pretty much something that the
Declan
Munster
Kidney?
supporters sing. They've been singing this for years, right? They sing the Fields of Athenry and said, it's a Connemara or it's a Galway song. I said, get over it. We sing the Fields of Athenry, There Is a Nile, The Banks, Stand Up and Fight. Come on. I have a great time. It's probably one of the most exciting things I ever did in my life. I stood in front of 70,000 people and sang Stand Up and Fight. I said, to hell with it. I had a great time. I'm not the better of it. I tell you, I was worn out and I didn't touch a ball.
And more memories from the archives of Cara O'Sullivan next Sunday morning, including how she and her family faced the challenge of her becoming a single mother at the start of her singing career. How she, along with her family, brought up her daughter Christine.
My parents were incredibly supportive, and as were my sisters and my brother, and my daughter had a fantastic family life. Really, so many people cared so much about her.
I should also mention Miriam O'Callaghan's tribute on her programme later this morning at 10 a.m, and the RTE Lyric Concert next Friday night at 7 p.m. is a tribute concert to Cara O'Sullivan. This morning's programme was based on original programmes by Miriam O'Callaghan, Tom Donnelly, Tom Durley, Sean Rocks, Ryan Tubridy, Marty Whelan. Special thanks to Robert Canning. Our closing music is by Thomas Moore, sung by Cara O'Sullivan.
King the late Cara O'Sullivan performing Thomas Moore's The Last Rose of Summer.
Finally this morning, a postscript to our programme on the Cork soprano Cara O'Sullivan, who died aged 59 2 weeks ago, and whose career we featured here last Sunday. You will remember the story of her precocious talent, how her older sister noticed her extraordinary voice when she was 12.
I was very tall at 12. I was skinny malinky, but I was very, very tall. And I remember she said to me, you actually were singing like a grown woman at 12.
And how she won the RTE Musician of the Future Award in 1990.
And this is the first time this instrument has won the competition. It is the voice Cara O'Sullivan.
This morning, how that win propelled her to a frontline operatic career. Her trajectory had already been halted when in her early 20s she had become a single mother.
And then you had Christine, your daughter, and you had her very young.
She's everything in my life, and I wasn't that young. I was young enough.
You weren't married, of course, and in fact you were bringing up Christine on your own. Was that difficult?
Not at all. My parents were incredibly supportive, and as were my sisters and my brother, and helped take care of business. My daughter had a fantastic family life, really. So many people cared so much about her.
And it's great because it's when your mum really came into her own though as well, wasn't it? That she almost brought her up as part of your family.
The hands-on help that my mum gave me and dad gave me was enormous. I couldn't have taken on the career of the business of singing without their help, and of course with Nuala and Aoife and Jim, but I just couldn't have managed without them. It just wouldn't have happened.
And is it true, it's almost because you were away a lot, your mum was almost like the mum to Christine, but when you came back you were the mother?
Well, she had this this amazing ability to just step back and let me get on with it. And the thing is, because Nuala used to always say, my other sister as well, Aoife, used to often say, oh, you were away all the time. And I said, yes, I could be away for long stretches touring with opera companies. But the funny thing, though, is that when I was home, I was really home all the time. And whereas you might have worked 45 to 48 weeks of the year, I didn't work quite to that pattern. So when I was home, I really was at home and taking care of whatever needed to be taken care of at home. That went on for a few years, and then I just had enough. I could be away for 8 months of the year and I just had enough. I couldn't take it anymore.
Along with her indebtedness to her family, she was also helped on her way to her international career as an opera singer by Veronica Dunn and by Joan Sutherland. She was 34 and ready for a role in opera.
I was about to audition for Welsh National Opera, and the most amazing thing, Ronnie made this happen. She gave me this opportunity to meet with Joan Sutherland, and I sang for Joan because I was auditioning for Welsh National Opera, and I told Ronnie, I need to get this. I need to get this job. Can you make it happen for me? And she says, leave it with me, lovey. I'll see what I can do. So off she went. She was on to Joan, who was coming over to do her international singing competition. She was adjudicating it, and she made it happen. And I was Joan Sutherland's first masterclass. I was the first person she did masterclass. She said, what do I do? I said, I don't know, but if I'm doing something wrong, will you tell me? Oh, no problem. I'll do that. It was the most amazing experience. I sang for her for several hours. Mairead Hurley very, very kindly played for me, but it was just an amazing experience to meet her, and she did hugely help me because I got the job. I went to Welsh National Opera, I auditioned, I got the job, and I knew I was going to get it.
What did she do that was so important, do you think, that really helped you so much?
I think a lot of it's about focusing the mind, honestly, and weeding out some of the rubbish that I end up singing. I kind of witter when I sing a bit. It happens. You kind of learn it, from a coach, and the coach, sometimes it's really good and sometimes it's, just too much. It's like over egging a custard. And so she just weeded out half of what was in these couple of areas that I was presenting to Welsh National Opera, and they gave me the job, and I worked there. I was there for 5 years, and I'll never forget it. That was kind of the start of the bigger, longer touring that I had, and it was a bittersweet experience, I can tell you.
The late Cara O'Sullivan, who died just 2 weeks ago, aged 59. This morning's programme was based on original programmes by Dan Collins, John Quinn, Porrick O'Rahilly, P.P. O'Reilly, Buddy Burke, Miriam O'Callaghan and myself. Our closing music this morning is from Cara O'Sullivan, one of Moore's melodies, regularly part of the National Day of Commemoration, where she was the soloist in the Royal Hospital in Kilmainham in Dublin in 2015. National Commemoration Day, of course, is an outdoor venue, her voice equal to the occasion. Thank you for listening and good morning.
Another musical interlude, Oft in the Stilly Night. Thomas Moore, arranged by Lieutenant Colonel J.B. Parr, sung by Cara O'Sullivan.
The late Cara O'Sullivan performing Oft in the Stilly Night, ending this week's Bowman on Sunday, which was presented and produced by John Bowman.